I guess what I have to say about Bitcoin is Bitcoin represents it is matter and energy in cyberspace.
Hmm.
That's the big idea we ought to focus on, and we ought to be sending that message to all engineers everywhere that without Bitcoin, you don't have matter or energy in cyberspace, and everything that exists in the internet domain and the digital domain is merely a simulation or a model of something in
Hmm.
the real world. The significance of being able to transfer something of value without an intermediary means that if I can transfer it to you without an intermediary, I can instantiate it or I can manifest it without an intermediary. And that means it stands alone in cyberspace rather than being an image of something that is in the real world. The image in the real world makes it a security, uh, whereas when you actually manifest the actual unit, the Satoshi, in the digital realm, it is matter. I can create something of substance uh, in the digital realm using Bitcoin. And if that's the case, then that introduces the field of engineering and physics into cyberspace. And that's what's been missing in the entire digital realm. The digital realm for the past 30 years lacked matter and energy, and you just had simulations. And that meant that computer science might have been relevant, but all the other sciences were never relevant. Like all of the learnings in mechanical engineering and civil engineering and thermodynamics and physics and material science and aeronautical engineering, all of those insights, they're not relevant if there's no matter and no energy in
Hmm.
the digital realm. They said, why was Satoshi so fascinated by irreversible transactions? But my thought was, yeah, Satoshi wanted irreversible transactions, but the idea for irreversible transactions came from the great Almighty when the universe
Yes.
was created,
Yes.
right? Because you know, in the beginning, let there be light, right? In the beginning, there was nothing, and then there was light. Well, light is energy. So the first thing that happens is energy, and then and matter is energy, and time flows. In the beginning, right? Before time flew, before time, there was nothing. So what happens? Well, when you actually introduce the concept of irreversibility, you introduce entropy
Hmm.
and time. Progression of time is the progression of disorder, and they're inextricably intertwined, and matter and energy are inextricably intertwined. And Bitcoin is like that big bang.
Hmm.
And in the big bang, in the beginning, right, there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, the time chain starts to form, and there's irreversibility, and now there's the passage of time. And now there's electricity run through the SHA-256 protocol to become digitized energy, a digital asset. And the beauty of the protocol was it was introduced as a conservative protocol, not an open-ended protocol. the universe has a bound of 21 million. And, and because we had that, we had, for the first time, this sort of bearer instrument that represents energy that's conservative. And if I can transfer it to myself, to yourself, without an intermediary, then I can instantiate it. And if I can instantiate it, I can persist it. The ability to persist energy without an intermediary is what allowed us to cut the cord with the banks. Now the money flowing over the internet wasn't a reflection. It wasn't a shadow of the money in the Visa network. It wasn't a shadow of the money in a bank. Everything was shadows of the real thing until Satoshi. And now we actually have the real thing, also known as, reified information, but reified, just a fancy word for objective, an object, right? So you could say it's materialized information, or you could say it was dematerialized energy, which is the opposite way to say the same thing. So if you're focused upon matter, and matter is relevant because matter is conservative, then the most extraordinary thing is the creation of matter in cyberspace. Now I can construct a $1 billion structure in cyberspace apart from any institution or individual, right? You could literally release the thing in cyberspace and it can live on its own. You could, in theory, create some kind of program, an AI program that was wealthy, that could live forever with assets or with wealth that is completely separate from any physical counterparty. So things that are beautiful are things in nature that are beyond the reach of politics. So a politician can't stop the force of gravity. People say, why would I ever want to have an irreversible transaction? Well, like when you drop a rock off a cliff, it's irreversible transaction. Why would you want to have it? Well, because every machine works based upon those principles, right? If I want to build a dam, I need to know that the water always flows downhill and that no politician is going to cause the water to flow uphill randomly, per code, because it breaks the dam. You can't build a mechanism without energy and matter and natural law and no political intervention. And that means if there is no matter in cyberspace, then nothing you do in cyberspace matters.
Yeah.
And that's why you get 180 million fake accounts on Twitter every year, because nothing matters. And that's why you get all the garbage and the spam and the phishing attacks and the toxicity, because nothing matters. There's nothing unhealthy in nature, because nature recycles every unhealthy thing very quickly. You can't create a mechanism without matter and energy. And the velocity when you go to irreversible and matter and energy is going to go to a kilohertz or 10 kilohertz or 1,000 kilohertz. And so it's not like 10x better or 100x better or 1,000x better. everything we built in cyberspace, right? They're shadows of reality. And as much as we tell ourselves we built something functional, it's what is it? It's like it's a grotesque monstrosity of something functional.
Mm-hmm.
Fake because there's no consequences, there's no matter, there's no energy. So we create things that have the appearance of functionality, but they're not truly beautiful and they're not functional. And if we actually take this to the next extreme, consider all the buildings in the world constructed with steel. Now take away all the steel and consider what the world looks like. Now consider all the structures in cyberspace built without Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing beautiful. Everything twisted and perverted in some way, shape, or form. Now imagine we introduce a crypto steel, this thing we call Bitcoin, we run machines in cyberspace on digital energy, and we build walls and buildings and structures and fortresses in cyberspace with digital matter. And now for the first time, there are consequences and things do matter. And what beautiful machines will we make? And what kind of toxic garbage will we purge from the system? The problem is we just don't have the right materials working in the digital realm. Way too much focus on proof of stake networks and like 19,800 coins, and I look at all of it and I'm hard pressed to see, but just endless recursive financial engineering.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I stream sats by the second or by the millisecond, it's literally like shining sunshine. Sunshine is light, sats are energy, like quanta of energy. And what it's like if you go into a burning building. If you go into a burning building in the real world, you would walk in and then it's going to get hot. And then at some point you're going to start to burn. And then eventually you'll be dead. Right? That's a consequence, a burning building. Can you create a burning building in cyberspace? You can create sunshine in cyberspace, or you can create a fire in cyberspace. You can create a heat sink. You can create a wall. You can rip down the wall. You can create any number of structures. And you can implement the structures with a frequency that's machine speed. So you could create very intricate mechanisms that might run 1,000,000 times faster than a physical mechanism that have friction and consequence and they exchange kinetic energy and potential energy. And what if I put $50,000 worth of Bitcoin into the car, in the chip? And then what if the Bitcoin ran through a exchange and then it ran through a electric power provider and the car was just continually replenished off of the Bitcoin for the life of the car? I could build a power source into the car. What if I built it into anything? What if I built it into the house? Well, what if I create a perpetual annuity, but I do it with Bitcoin, and then I attach it to a piece of hardware? You could attach it to a hardware wallet, right? I mean, like, So for about 2,000 years, maybe 3,000 years, people were pretty much stuck. And you could endlessly re engineer and attempt to improve things, but the materials are the limiting factor. When steel comes along, now you can reimagine 10-story, 20-story, 40-story buildings, combine steel with, the concept of an elevator or the like, with a little bit of electricity. And now the entire world of civil engineering explodes with a renaissance of creativity. And so materials hold back a given field. Steel was an important material. Oil, if you calculate the energy density of oil and compare it to coal or compare it to wind, right? Sorry, you put aluminum together with diesel and you get the airplane. And you take away those two things, right? No internal combustion engine, no oil, and no aluminum, no steel. The civilization disappears. So I've used the metaphor crypto steel, right? Bitcoin really is that crypto steel. It's not just digital energy, it's digital matter, but it's a very particular type of matter. It's a tough enough matter that you could build something that you could reasonably expect to layer. What do I want? I want the building to last 100 years, but I also want it to be 100 stories high.
Mm-hmm.
And 100 stories high is working against gravity, right? And if you think about the energy and gravity on the 100th story versus the first level of the building, you needed some kind of material that had enormous energy density, metallic energy. And steel is the highest density metallic form of energy, or the most powerful metallic energy. But if you ever walked into a steel refinery and you looked at how they created it, there would be no doubt in your mind a lot of energy goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Extraordinary energy goes into it in order to create that material. So I think if we look forward in the coming age, the human race is held back by lack of certain materials, and when you find the material, then you can leap forward and you can break through all of these constraints. And we have not even scratched the surface. There must be 10,000 different areas that you can reimagine with Bitcoin as the material. If I take the $1 billion of electricity and instead I sell it for $1 billion of political energy, we call dollars, then I trade the political energy for digital energy, we call Bitcoin, and I have $1 billion of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is a file. I have transformed analog energy into digital energy. Now, when I move the file from me to you, I lose it, you have it. And the difference between that file and a digital music file is the music is not conservative and the Bitcoin is conservative. And so when I sent you the music file, I kept a copy. But when I send you the Bitcoin, there's no double spend. I lost the copy. And you transform them into different types of energy. Eventually, you'll probably flip through a political energy we call fiat currency, and then you'll convert that. These are heat exchanges or energy exchanges, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just transforming one type of energy to another. What is vibration? Vibration literally is the transformation of energy from one form to another form. Pendulum This is potential energy. This is kinetic energy. Yeah. Potential kinetic. It's continually with a sine wave vibrating, just like that guitar is vibrating. Potential energy to kinetic energy. When you're vibrating energy between the dollar and the Bitcoin and back to the dollar and into electricity and back to the Bitcoin, you're just vibrating it, and you've got a little bit of energy loss, but not that much. And if there's not very much energy loss, you get a resonating frequency. You know, you strike something and it'll actually hum, right, forever, right, a long, long time. And the reason you transform them digitally is so that you can vibrate them at any frequency and store them with no degradation, right? Move them in a friction-free programmatic fashion, store them forever. And I can't store my oil or my electricity forever. And I can't program it, decompose it, recompose it, and oscillate or vibrate it. And that's why I want it digital. But as soon as you break that idea and you realize that once you've digitally transformed it, then the sky's the limit, because at that point you can write programs and machines that do 10 million things an hour with it. You can decompose it and vibrate it, you know, in different forms between 100,000 counterparties in an hour. I mean, who knows where that leads? And when we convert physical energy and physical matter to digital energy and digital matter, in cyberspace, it's weightless. Digital energy is about putting energy into orbit. It's about putting something real into cyberspace. And the profound idea is if you can create digital energy, you can create digital matter. If you can create digital matter, you can create something that matters. And now the passage of time and the onset of entropy allows you to construct something in the digital realm which is orders of magnitude better than what we have today. And so the most fundamental thing to understand about Bitcoin is, if we're going to improve the economy, if we're going to create an ethical monetary asset and a trustworthy, technically sound, economically sound, ethically sound monetary network, you're going to have to do it in a fashion that doesn't require, nor does it allow, the intervention of a company, an individual, a group of programmers, a country, a politician. Right? It needs to be beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, nobody in China thinks that an American politician can make their steel building collapse by passing a law in America. That's why they use steel. And that's why we universally use steel to build beautiful things. And so when you're talking to politicians or investors and they say, why energy? It's because we're trying to engineer a better world. And you can't engineer a better physical world without physical energy and physical matter. If you want to engineer a virtual world, put on your virtual goggles, put on music, and stare at some avatar and never take them off. And then software might solve that problem, but it's certainly not going to solve the problem that the human race has and is going to have for the next 10,000 years. And we need to do the one thing that human beings have always done in order to elevate their condition. And that one thing is to channel energy. We will either channel energy and prosper as a nation, as a civilization, as a people, or we will fail to channel energy and we will suffer. Ultimately, it's the channeling of energy that determines the winners from the losers. And our best hope to uplift all of the civilization, all of humanity, is to channel energy more effectively. And money is the last great engineering feat for us to move to the next stage. If you're looking for the great breakthroughs in channeling economic energy, you had coinage, followed by banknotes, followed by credit, and here we are. None of those previous systems for channeling economic energy, would be deemed by an engineer to be anywhere near acceptable. Any machine that lost 2, 3, 5, 10% of its energy every cycle would have been discarded as a prototype. This is digital energy technology. Digital energy, digital money, digital commodities, they're critical to embrace, and especially digital scarcity, to the future of the human race. Yeah, Bitcoin miner, it's a machine to create security in cyberspace. You're putting electricity in and you're creating a vault of encrypted energy, and that's what you're using to build as your foundation to build civilization in cyberspace. Right, and in this particular case, I see the Bitcoin miners as the foundation to hold up the entire digital ecosystem. Steel is a material energy. It's massively dense energy, and if you want to build structures, you have to create the steel. I think about a steel refinery, and I think about how much energy goes into the refining of steel, and the heat and the energy, and then you think about what comes out, and then if you want to build any structure in the world, right, that steel is the material to build that structure. Bitcoin miners are energy refiners in a way, right? And what they spit out is digital energy. They not only create it, but they secure it. You can also think of them as, supporting the railroad in cyberspace, right?
Hmm.
Like it's a railroad, and there's a fixed cost to build the railroad, and there's a fixed cost to maintain the railroad. But once you've got the railroad and it's properly maintained, now the cost to move tons of cargo from one end of the line to the other end of the line has decreased, not by a factor of 10 or a factor of 100. It's probably decreased by a factor of 10,000 to 100,000, where you're able to move material at orders and orders of magnitude less cost. The problem we have right now is, although the world wants to be digital, there is no digital money. There is only digital credit. Remember what I said, money without energy is credit.
Mm.
And so right now, what you have is credit circulating on the digital network. Is the underlying asset, the euro, the dollar, the peso, their credit, and they're not backed by energy, which means that they're all lapsing in energy content anywhere from 10% a year to 50% a year to 90% a year. So over time, the entire system is collapsing because there's no energy backing it, and it's neither a commodity nor is it a scarcity. You're converting the coupon into a commodity, upgrading it to a scarcity. So you're setting up an energy system that will hold money without energy lapse forever and will move it millions of times or billions of times more efficiently. The whole premise that is required for the universe to function is conservation of energy. First you have to have the existence of energy, and then you have to have the conservation of energy. And in the Bible, the first thing we remember is God says, "Let there be light." Right. So everything starts with the deity pointing out that in the absence of light, which is energy, there is no life. So energy is fundamental, but conservation of energy is what makes the universe rational. It's what makes it work. Commodities without energy are coupons. In cyberspace, an object without energy is an image. If you have an object and it has no energy, it's like Plato's shadow. A person without energy is a ghost. When you make a comment and there's no energy to back it, it lacks credibility. The energy itself is what creates cost to a copy. And having a cost to a copy is what creates scarcity. The ultimate coupon is there's 21 million units of money and you can't make any more. If I want to guarantee that that it'll be scarce, then I inject energy into each coupon. Right, that's the equivalent of 21 million gold coins. It's not perfect, but it's energy infused, so there's some expense to it, so it's credible. But if I want to make it perfect, then I have to come up with a decentralized ledger or Bitcoin type system where it's not just 21 million gold coins, it's 21 million Bitcoin, and no one can mine any more Bitcoin no matter how much energy they expend. So in that case, I go from digital coupon when I have no energy to digital commodity when I have energy. And if I want to become digital scarcity, I have to have a digital protocol or a scarcity protocol that the energy circulates within. So the real genius of Bitcoin there is you haven't created a coupon, you haven't even created a digital commodity. You've created a digital scarcity due to the protocol. And the digital scarcity created absolute scarcity that's fixed. And because you created an absolute fixed scarcity, you created the perfect money and the ideal investment. Now, people can start to act rationally.
When you look at the fundamental breakthroughs with Bitcoin, one of them is solving the double spend problem. And the second is solving the problem of how you transfer a Bitcoin without a trusted intermediary, without a trusted third party. But if you think more deeply about this, solving the double spend problem is the same as solving the problem of conservation of energy in the universe. The entire last 30 years of the internet is all about digital transformation of information, and digital maps and digital music and digital entertainment. These are all examples of non-conservative bearer instruments moving through cyberspace. What do you get? Well, you get an explosion of information, an explosion of entertainment, an explosion of education, all good things, but they are not energy because they are not conservative. All matter, everything in the universe is energy, right? And matter can be converted to energy. Energy can be converted into matter. Tesla said, if you want to understand the secret to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. you have to start thinking about vibration and energy and frequency, right? That's the significance of Bitcoin. Decode the file. And if I gave you $1 billion worth of Bitcoin in a file, you would probably travel somewhere in the world and find an exchange or a person. Even if there was no exchange, you would go find someone that owned a building and you would just swap them the Bitcoin for the building directly in a peer-to-peer transaction. So Bitcoin is digital energy because it is non-conservative and because it can get work done, just like energy can get work done, and also because it can be converted into matter or property. The adiabatic lapse, the energy lapse in the fluid as the energy moves through it. And when you understand money like that, then you understand the currencies are just fluids through which money or monetary energy can flow. Money is economic energy. What is capital? Right? Capital is the concept of pure economic energy. How do you maintain the capital? Well, if you put it in a weak currency, it goes away. You put it in a strong property, it actually accretes or holds its value. So what is Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin's digital gold, but it's also digital property. It's also digital money. It's also digital capital. It's also digital energy. If Bitcoin is digital energy, then I can create radiation in cyberspace. If I want your attention, I shine the light right in cyberspace. No one ever thought to do that with currency, but the closest equivalent would be I shower money on your head, right? I drop coins on your head. I throw pennies at you. But it's not very practical to throw pennies at people, and at the end of the day, it doesn't work. It's very practical to actually radiate Satoshis at people. But what we have now with Bitcoin, once you properly understand it, once you see that it is truly a block of energy, it's moving at low frequency on the base layer, but it moves at extremely high frequency on a layer 2 or a layer 3. I would say if you're a technologist today and you're thinking about creating the next great thing, you ought to be thinking about how you create applications of digital energy.
Right? This is not ideology, right? This is just technology. That's the old way, this is the new. One last point that I think is really important, which is Einstein said matter is energy and energy is matter. So is Bitcoin digital money? Yeah. Is it digital property? Yeah. Is it digital energy? Yeah. Now you've got digital energy. Now your inflation rate 0. Now you can hold it for 1,000 years. You can move it. You can send it 1,000 times. Transaction fee is next to nothing. And you're like, well, but how's it digital energy? How do you get it back to be energy? And the answer is, okay, I send $1 billion block of it to Tokyo. I run it through an exchange. Heat exchanger? Decoder? No, I run it through a Bitcoin exchange. And I convert it back into yen. And I take the yen and I buy electricity from the Tokyo Power Company. And when do I do that? Whenever I want to do that. But as long as there's a civilization that can produce electrical energy, I can exchange the digital energy for fiat energy. What's fiat? Currency is political energy. What's clear is the civilization is built on top of energy system. Aluminum, steel, oil, these are all just forms of energy. Yes, like human civilization is all about harnessing energy. And now we have Bitcoin. And what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is digital energy. And what makes it energy as opposed to property? Well, if I create $1 billion digital hotel and I can move it at the speed of light, it's digital property. It's indestructible. But the thing that makes it energy is the fact that I can rent the hotel out by the room minute. We only have discovered one way that is settled and universally agreed upon to create digital energy or a digital commodity. And the one way is proof of work. I'd say Bitcoin's an example of the creation of a digital commodity. So the use of energy doesn't guarantee that something's a commodity. The use of proof of work doesn't guarantee it's a scarcity, right? Because the protocol is what makes it a scarcity. The way that it becomes without an issuer is you have to have a consensus mechanism that doesn't require the coordination of engineers. So the problem with proof of stake is that proof of stake is a simulation of the universe or an imaginary universe. You're imagining energy and you're creating a virtual machine. They literally call it a virtual machine with virtual energy in the form of virtual tokens for virtual security, all manifested in software code. Proof of work allows you to place the consensus and the security and the integrity of the network in the hands of Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin node runners. So you're using electricity and you're using 256 ASICs in order to create the security and the integrity of the network, and that's generally thermodynamically bound. And it's open and everybody can participate and anybody can create their own Bitcoin miner. Anybody can mine Bitcoin. Anybody can, electricity is broadly found in the universe. And you're not waiting. You don't need the permission of anybody to allow you to get on the network and mine. As soon as you decide that you want to get rid of the energy, then you've decided to create a virtual machine, virtual energy. And when they create the energy in a proof of stake network, or any other non-energy protocol, you're not just getting rid of the electricity, you're also getting rid of the material energy, which is the SHA-256 mining ASIC. So the application-specific integrated circuit is matter. The electricity is energy. You're eliminating the matter and the energy. And the hardware is important here, just as important as is the energy, because the electricity is a commodity, whereas the thing that creates that makes this a specialty or makes it a scarcity is the fact that you're modulating the energy through a SHA-256 mining chip. The genius of the Bitcoin protocol is that the hardware is proprietary. There's no other use for it, and it gets exponentially better over time. Such that the energy efficiency of the network is improving with Moore's law and with the halving protocol. So that makes this an increasingly efficient security protocol, and it protects the protocol from someone that has a huge amount of commodity computing power, or a huge amount of electricity power. It doesn't matter that you build a fusion reactor that generates thousands of terawatts, because it's not the pure electricity that secures the network. It's the encrypted energy. It's the SHA-256 hashes that secure the network. So if it was only the electricity, it would be vulnerable to an attack from someone that harnessed the power of the sun. I think what they're missing is that the efficiency of the network is improving with Moore's law exponentially.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what they're missing. It's not secured by energy. It's secured by digital energy or an encrypted energy. And the efficiency with which that encryption is taking place is improving somewhere in the range of 36 to 40% a year. So, as of today, as far as we can see, we run the numbers, Bitcoin has taken up maybe 15 basis points of the world's energy. And it's not clear to me that it's going to grow that much more. At some point, it hits some maximum. And it actually starts to decrease because the proprietary protocol is such that ultimately in the year 2100, it won't matter whether you have harnessed all the power of a star. It won't matter, because that won't allow you to create hashes. If Google and Microsoft and Amazon, they all decided tomorrow they're going to turn all of their data centers into Bitcoin mining data centers, their cost, to generate a Bitcoin would probably be like $1 million a coin, if not $10 million a coin, because they don't have ASICs, right? And the ASIC isn't 1,000 times, it's 1,000,000 times more efficient. I'm excited about this. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin theory. When I think of Bitcoin, I think this is the first digital monetary system in the history of the world. There are fires that have been unleashed into the society, and they're burning, and the effect is exothermal. It's when all the monetary energy leaps from gold to Bitcoin, or when it leaps from fiat to Bitcoin, there's this phase transition. And monetary energy is energy, and money is energy. In fact, money is the highest form of energy. So if we ask the question, what is money? Money is the highest form of energy that human beings can channel. Human beings as a species prosper by channeling energy. So the theme is humans prosper by channeling energy. What's the most efficient energy network in the history of the world? Well, it's about to be Bitcoin. Because the challenge of humanity is, how do I store energy and transmit energy across time and space? You have to explain to people that sound money requires energy, and it actually requires scarcity. But ultimately, the crypto attack is, yeah, but we can create our own token without any energy, and it's just as good, and it's just as secure. So you really have to go the other direction, which is to make the observation that if you take the energy out of the coin, you've created a coupon. And if you take the energy out of the coin, it's not money, it's credit. And if you take the energy out of the coin, it's not a commodity, it's a security. And therefore, the only question is, how are you going to inject the energy? You can't avoid putting energy into the product. if you want to create something of substance. I think the real challenge is to explain to them why there's a moral hazard and an economic hazard and a technical hazard to take the energy out of the crypto network. Right? The economic hazard is when the energy disappears, it's easy to spin up 10,000 copycat networks. Mm-hmm. Right. So the real problem is once you go to proof of stake, well, then what's to keep you from making copies, endless copies of all these networks, because you're running on generic hardware using imaginary energy. And ultimately, the economic hazard is there'll be 50, and then they'll all just chew into each other's monetary premium, and then there'll be 100, then 1,000, and the like, right? And so there's no way that it will hold value because there's no scarcity when you take the energy out of it. It becomes a marketing game. You know, you can. It's really casino chips or coupons, and you'll be limited to the value that you can create in a coupon network or a security network, which is 2 orders of magnitude less than a monetary network. The technical hazard to not using hardware with electricity, not using those 2 forms of energy, is that you have to create a simulation. If you live in a universe where the laws of thermodynamics hold, right, there's a rate at which heat dissipates everywhere in the world, and you don't have to write a piece of software to tell Bitcoin miners how to dissipate heat, you know, and you don't have to write a piece of software to, you know, to apply gravity and apply the speed of light, right? You kind of get that for free. In a virtual world, you have to actually write the software to control things like speed of light and speed of sound and heat dissipation and, you know, and gravity and materials coefficients. And what you find is it's not so easy for a small group of engineers to duplicate what the universe worked out over the last 4 billion years. Bitcoin, because it's working in the physical world, it absorbs all of the physical constants in the universe, and everything works in parallel at the speed of light. Whereas in a staking network, you have to create a simulated world where you have to simulate all these constants, and you have to enforce your own concept of time. That's why energy a la Bitcoin is the superior approach, and maybe the only approach that we know of for solving the problem of sound money.